Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. It is the aftermath, and it is the aftermath of a 2022 season that sees the Patriots finish at 8-9 and out of the postseason, thanks to their loss at Buffalo. A spirited loss, but also a Miami Dolphins win. Phil, can you give me a 1 minute, 60 second, that's it, postscript to the 2022 season? Then I'll give my own.
Well, I felt as though this game was in some ways representative of their season. Not all bad. It wasn't all bad, just like today's game. And there were some signs of life offensively, turnovers defensively, some of the things that we saw at points in fits and starts in 2022. But as was the case for most of this season, they couldn't play a full game. That's, to me, number one. They're not consistent enough to be able to play a 60-minute football game against a quality opponent. And today's game, I think, bore that out. Number two, big picture takeaway, they aren't explosive enough to keep up with the best of the best in the NFL right now. And the best of the best in the NFL right now are the best offenses in the NFL right now. It's the Bills, it's Kansas City. Those are the two teams you are ostensibly going to be competing with for a long, long time. And the Patriots just aren't on that level. So to me, how do you get closer to that? How do you find more consistency? That's what this offseason has to be about.
I think there's a lot of people who remain wedded to the idea that Patriots are this close. And they would say to your assessment that, man, they gave up 14 points on kickoff returns, though, Phil. You take those off the board. And that's an exercise people have been engaging in a lot this year. If you take this away, this fumble against Cincinnati, this lateral against the Raiders, this play against Green Bay in overtime, well, then it's different. But if you're going to do that, you can also look at, well, if you take away the pick six from Kyle Duggar, where Derek Carr just threw it right to him, great play by Duggar, but well, that's different. And if you take away the touchdown last week on the return against Miami, or if you take away the punt return by Marcus Jones, outlier plays you can't really count on, well, the Patriots could be, 6-11? So you have to deal in the reality. And the reality is, for this team, bigger picture is they're 25-26 since the departure of Tom Brady. This year, by their own volition, they made decisions with their offense that led the team to regress, led the team to change its offense, not have appropriate coaching, have a backslide on the offensive line, and really forfeit a season of Mac Jones' development with a highly paid and fairly talented roster. And at the end of the day, just like you pointed out, Phil, this is a game in which the Patriots showed high-level competency in places they hadn't shown. They showed signals on offense of being better in the last two games with 70-yard-plus drives of extended nature that ended in touchdowns. And they did it today on a few occasions. But they plugged up that hole in the dike, and they sprung a leak someplace else, and that was on special teams. What did Sunday tell you about this team, bud?
Well, I think you get back to that when it comes to the special teams and the explosive errors, right? 2 kick returns for touchdowns, 2 long bomb throws for touchdowns that do their season in. And that, to me, gets back to the fact that they can't play a full game against a good team. You know, I understand if not for this, then this. But to your point, that has been the case all year. I think the special teams breakdowns weren't flukes. If anything, they are indicative of what the problem has been all year. They aren't up on the details that they need to be up on. And it's usually in the kicking game and on offense for this 2022 version of this Patriots team. That's usually the case. And even when it comes to my point about their explosiveness and their inability to be explosive, and I agree with you, they showed some real positive signs on that side of the ball at times. But Tom, they had the ball with over 8 minutes left and a chance to cut into a lead that had grown to 12 points by the Bills. 8 minutes is an eternity in today's NFL, or it should be. And they promptly go 3 and out, and they get a gift because the Bills muff a punt Taiwan Jones kicks a bouncing ball on a horrible punt, another horrible punt by Michael Pilardi to finish out the season. And they get the ball back, and they get 5 or 6 more plays, and they get picked off because they have a penalty. They run a draw on 2nd and 20. So now it's 3rd and 19, and they're forced to push it down the field into coverage, and it's an interception. That is what this offense has been this year. Not the long 70-yard play drives. Those have been nice when you've seen them, but that is this 2022 Patriots offense, that sequence right there. And it's a lot to fix in one off season, Tom. It is an extremely daunting task that Bill Belichick faces to fix the offense, to infuse this team with some leadership, to get it to grow the way it should have grown from last year to this year. It didn't. It's a lot to fix in a 6-month span or whatever it is before they report to training camp.
What Sunday told me was that the resilience, it wavered, but it wavered about 5 or 6 weeks ago. It spiked again, which tells me that there is good leadership. There is good commitment. They have good character guys on the team. We'll talk about the leadership going out in a second, but those things remain present. But if you look at the way the Bills overwhelmed the Patriots, and to a degree they did, again, I'm not talking about the kickoff return touchdowns. I'm talking about the fact that they have a quarterback who threw 3 touchdown passes. The first one in the red zone, creating. The Patriots are trying to play zone. They couldn't get home with the rush. That happens. It's okay. But he's just such a good quarterback. And Dawson Knox works his way open. Boom, touchdown. Then you have an immaculately placed ball on Jonathan Jones, who had pretty good coverage until Stephon Diggs said, oh, I need 2 more steps of the next gear, and I'm going to pull away and bring this in even as Jonathan Jones is narrowing the gap again, because Josh Allen can put it on a platter from 65 yards with velocity. That's your second play. And then John Brown, scrub on their team, in essence, still runs about a 4.2, and he can get separation on the Patriots. And Miles Bryant can't get his hips around. He's never going to make up that stagger. And Josh Allen can flick it that distance. And Mac Jones does not have the ability to do those things, nor does he have the players to throw it to. His pick down low, similar maybe to the pick against Miami in the opener on the throw to Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar is not going to physically overwhelm anyone. I know he did it against Pittsburgh. It was a nice treetop touchdown by him. That's an outlier. He got out-battled. That's a pick. And, otherwise, you're swimming upstream trying to make plays. And God bless Hunter Henry, Devontae Parker, and Jacoby Myers. I think the Patriots should find a place for all 3 of those guys going forward. But they don't have the artillery, and they don't have a quarterback who's that dynamic. Nobody's as dynamic as Allen, really. Mahomes, yeah. But it's tough to match that guy, especially with the guys he's got around him. That stagger's not going to be made up. Mac is always going to be less than in terms of dual threat, in terms of arm strength. So that's what it told me. And your point, Phil, is well taken. A lot to work on over the next 6 months, and that has to start right away. And in getting started, they're going to have to do it without some of their key guys. Matthew Slater spoke after the game through tears. Here's some. Matthew Slater is one of the greats from the Patriots, appears ready to hang him up.
Sorry. Given everything I've had, my dad told me when I was young, if I was going to play the game, that there was a certain way to play it, a certain way to go about it. I tried to make him proud, represent his name the right way, because that's how he did it. And that's what it's always been about for me.
And while we're at it, Devin McCourty, obviously Patriots Hall of Famer in the future. He also seems to be on the verge of hanging them up, although he did indicate that a decision has not been made entirely. It was Dev talking after the game.
It didn't hit me until, sitting there and they're taking a knee. Of just the emotions, everything that comes in, and you go through a season, and not knowing your future. I just said to myself today to just go out there and give it my all and see where that got me. So always proud of, my effort to go out there. And I never take for granted what it means to stand in front of other men and lead them. and other guys look to you. And, you know, I always thought, you know, my rookie year, Lee Bodden was here, and Lee Bodden said to me, he said, I really don't care what, you know, other people think of me. I've always wanted to play this game to get the respect of my teammates and the respect of my opponents when I play against them. And I think about my career, and, you know, him telling me that as a rookie meant a lot. And I based my career on that, of playing against guys and guys understanding, you know, me playing the game the right way, trying to be a team player, trying to be a guy that can play anywhere on the field, every snap. And most importantly, you know, for other guys in the locker room to look at me as a mentor. And you guys just heard Slate. I mean, what he's meant to me as not just a teammate, but someone to look to, someone to kind of mold my life as I grew and got married and had kids. Just to always look down the locker room and always know that he was there. We're gonna have to always keep in touch and FaceTime and stuff, but you just start to, as you get older, you think about all those things each year, not knowing if it'll be the same.
Probably one of the other great leaders on this team, David Andrews, was in tears, couldn't even really speak afterwards, Phil, on this. What did you witness in the locker room as you were in Buffalo today with that outpouring, and what's the after effects of their leaving?
A lot of emotion. Matthew Slater, especially, you know, head in his hands, sitting in his locker, really not talking to anybody. That picture stands out to me as I think back to my time in the locker room tonight, because he is such a beacon, is how I've described him before, for players in good times and bad, in terms of how to handle things and how to act. And it's an emotional game for all of them. He takes his job very seriously, and so after losses, he is crestfallen at times. But for him, understanding where he's at in his career, understanding that that could have been his last game, and understanding that they had just allowed 2 kick returns for touchdowns, and knowing how seriously he takes his job as the captain of that special teams unit. He said it after the game. He was shell-shocked by that performance, that he really hasn't been a part of anything like that. And some of the numbers would speak to that, Tom. According to Mark Daniels, who found this stat of MassLive.com, the Patriots had allowed 6 kick returns for touchdowns from 2000 through the 2021 season under Bill Belichick. They allowed 3 this year alone and 2 here tonight. And you end up losing the game by 12 points and you give up 14 in the kicking game. There was a lot running through Matthew Slater's mind post-game. You know, Devin McCourty, I think, is a little bit different in terms of how he expresses things. But if they lose both of these guys, they lose a link to championship teams past. Yeah, they'll still have David Andrews. He's under contract, but he's really, Tom, he's one of the only ones. And I'm having a hard time thinking back to anybody else who was a part of that 2018 team. Even John Jones is set to be a free agent this year. So it would be monumental what they would be losing in both these guys. I think they've been trying to, you know this as well, they've been trying to get other leaders ready to go for years.
Yep.
And I don't know who those guys are outside of David Andrews. You know, I think Jawan Bentley's a pretty good leader. I think Deatrich Wise is a pretty good leader. I just think it's going to be interesting to see who fills that void, because it's going to be massive and it's not obvious as to who that'll be.
Yeah, and if we look at kind of the lineage of the leadership that started in 2000, Anthony Pleasant, probably a lot of people who are listening to this pod don't understand or get Anthony Pleasant and his importance, or Brian Cox. Those are guys who started with Bill in 93, 95 with the Browns, maybe went to the Jets or were with the Patriots, or some of those guys Belichick coached with the Patriots in 96 and the Brewskis and the Ted Johnsons. They came forward, the Malloys and the Laws, and passed it on to Seymour and to Brady, and then to Wilfork, and then to Mayo and Vrabel. And it carried forward from those guys to McCourty. These guys were also tightly knit, to Slater. Brady, of course, through that, Edelman, James White, Kevin Falk getting it to James White in many ways through osmosis and not even really overlapping. Hightower, It's just James Devlin. And now, I mean, there's guys, sure. Jacoby Myers is a laudable player. I don't know if he's one of the best players in the league. I don't know if he's an all-pro player or a Pro Bowl player. That's what Mike Vrabel was by 2007, worth remembering. You have to be a really good player, too, and that's something that Gerard Mayo spoke to us at the Super Bowl about last year. You want your best players to be your leaders. Kyle Duggar could be that. But I guess, there's a void. Every team has to address it. At least they have high-character guys who can lead in one way or another. But somebody has to carry the banner. And we went through the highest of the high in terms of leadership and commitment and character. And I still think those things are present. But, and I still think that, hey, if they worked with me, half those guys, I'd be ready to fall into something because they're talented at it. They're gifted at it. They're superior in their fields. But it's different in the NFL. It's a different animal. So I look at that as interesting. I would be remiss if I didn't say there has to be a change at the top of the special teams coaching situation. I'm not calling for Cam Akord's head. I hope he's cashing a check someplace in 2023. I'm sure he will be. Maybe here in New England in a different job, but it cannot continue in the special teams. Coverage, protection, the mechanism of the whole thing, it's just screwy, Phil. It's screwy, boy.
Yeah, I have a hard time with the second one. Like the second one is there, the play is there to be made, right? The second kick return for a touchdown, Miles Bryant has a one-on-one clear shot at Nyheim Hines and just gets run over. That's, I hesitate to say that's how you draw it up as a coach, but your guy's there to tackle the other guy. That's a tough one. But the overall, Tom, in terms of the success of the unit, I don't know how you don't look at it. The way Bill Belichick looked at Cam McCourt on the sideline after that second one, and they spoke briefly, and Cam McCourt gave a sort of a shrug of the shoulders, palms turned to the sky. I have no idea what words were said in that moment, but Bill Belichick has to be considering a change there. The Jake Bailey thing hurt them, Tom. I think they would have loved to have a guy who could kick a touchback or two these last few weeks, especially tonight when the kicking game is such a story, and they don't have him. He's not available. And it's an out-and-out disaster. Now, that's a story unto itself. Where's Jake Bailey, and why isn't he here? But I think there could be a lot of changes, Tom, right, between special teams, offense. If I'm ownership, and ownership was here in the building tonight, Robert Kraft left the Patriots locker room soon before we were allowed in. If you're a member of the Kraft family right now, you've got to be thinking about changes too, and you have to be ready to act fast or encourage your CEO when it comes to the football operation, Bill Belichick. You have to encourage him to act fast because the way these coaching hires work, everybody's, not everybody's, but a lot of people's seasons are ending today, and a lot of people are going to be looking to make changes. And so can you get your hands on the best of the best to make your 2023 a little bit more successful? That's a huge deal for Bill Belichick, and he can't wait around. I don't know how much, breaking down the season-long tape and handing out season-long grades and things of that nature. Remember when Josh McDaniels wasn't able to interview for the Giants job, Tom, a few years ago, and it was because he had to tie up some loose ends from the end of the season? That can't be the approach this offseason. Tie up your loose ends, sure, but you got to be working the phones and making sure you bring some people in here too.
That stuff will keep. The video is going to be there at the end of the week just as much as at the beginning. Obviously, to go off my little plan here a little bit, Bill O'Brien is the white whale. He's what we presume the Patriots would pursue. I think with O'Brien, there has to be a feeling, okay, if I'm Bill O'Brien, what's my best opportunity? Where's the best place for me to go? Now, may want to come to New England because of the roots, because of his personal roots here, having gone to St. John's and being from here and his ties to the Cape and his family being here. But what happens with the staff on offense? Where does Matt Patricia go? Where does Joe Judge go? I think Bill is probably close, or at least friends and acquaintances with both of those guys. So, if you're Bill O'Brien, you probably want to have that question answered. How's it going to look? Is it me and Matt? Am I coming in to help Matt? Who's the quarterback's coach? Are we doing the same thing that you guys just spent all the offseason trying to do? And my understanding is there's been no contact, which is fine. I mean, I would imagine Alabama's season having ended, the Patriots could have aligned themselves with Bill O'Brien had they desired to, but you have to make it palatable for Bill O'Brien in understanding what he's walking into. And there is a level of dysfunction that you can look at right now with this Patriots front office, coaching staff, and setup that makes you have a little bit of pause. And it's been that way. If you call around, you want to call around to guys who worked in the personnel department for the Patriots recently and or elsewhere, they're not going to give you a great recommendation as to, yeah, things were all set there. You're not going to get that from any of the former coaches here who are, scattered around the NFL. You're not going to get that from some of the players who are here right now. So you need to be, if you're Bill O'Brien, assured that you're going to have the latitude to do things and try to help be a fixer instead of, well, here's your box, fit into it and see how it goes. There was a good point by Ted Johnson as we talked about the age of Bill Belichick, and he's going to be 71 when next season begins. At 71, he's doing more and more and more, and he's taking more on himself, and he did that this year. Will he be willing to relinquish that stuff? The easy thing to do was just to put Matt Patricia in one spot and Joe Judge in another and let the Lions and the Giants pay them and pretend that they didn't have any title or responsibility. That was the easy thing to do. The hard thing to do is to convince and pay guys to stay and give them the latitude to have titles, to realize professional success, and to get credit for things and implement things. And it's hard probably at 71 to be as successful as Bill is and say, yeah, maybe I need to get some more ideas and cast a wider net and open my mind to things. But I think this season probably might have brought it home to him because I think folks around him in the organization say, he's as good as it gets, but I wish he'd listen to a little bit more outside stuff and stop being so cloistered about things.
And what people close to him will tell you, one of his great strengths is that he's willing to adapt. And that's one of the reasons why he's been able to have the amount of success he's had over a long period of time. How could you not adapt? How could you not adapt after this season would be my question, where over the breadth of it. And I don't think he would look at tonight's game and say, hey, offensively, pretty good in the red zone, better than we've been after a pretty good week in the red zone last week. We showed we could push it down the field a little bit, like that long 50. If we had just had Devontae Parker for the whole, last month and a half of the season, maybe things would have looked differently for us. I don't believe Bill Belichick would make excuses for his team that way. I think he
has had a penchant this year to put perfume on the pig and whipped cream on the turd.
Publicly, right? But now that the season's over and you don't make the postseason and you are a losing team and your quarterback's at the podium after a pretty good rookie year that didn't finish the way anybody wanted it to, but a pretty good rookie year, and he's asked if he's satisfied with the progress that he made in year two, and he says flatly no.
What? He said that? Let's get that. Throw that up right now, John.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You dealt with so much this year. Are you satisfied after the injury? Are you satisfied with the progress you made this year?
No. Obviously, you look at each year of your football life and you want to get better as a player. And I did. I learned a lot. And I think a lot of guys on our team learned a lot. But was not the progress that any of us wanted to make. So it starts with me, and not to talk about last year or anything, but it's the same story here. Just towards the end of the season, we have to play better, have to win this game to get a chance to move on, and that's how every season's going to be in the NFL. You either get close to making the playoffs and you got to win out, or you get there and you either win or go home. So couldn't do that today, and just proud of the guys. Like I said, it's just tough because we had such a good group of guys, same group, I've been working with the past 2 years, and we made a lot of progress throughout the year, just not good enough to, consistently do it and all that. So it's just disappointing.
When you hear that, Tom, that does not Bill Belichick hear that too and say, yeah, of course, he's stating the obvious there. Even, anybody that's watched our team can see that. And I'm the head coach. I know our team better than anybody else. And it's just as obvious to me as it is to anyone, if not more so, that we got to change some things.
What's up with Mac? What are you impressed with? Where is he right now? I'll give you my quick 25-second. You got a guy who knew he was probably tied to an anchor. They tried to change the offense. They tried to change the language. They changed the coaching. They took away his comfort zone. They changed the philosophy in terms of trying to press it downfield. It didn't work. He got scapegoated. He got hurt. He got yo-yoed in the lineup. Then they told him to stop throwing picks. Then they told him we're going to be absolutely a high school offense in terms of aggressiveness and just don't make a mistake. He got frustrated. He stayed frustrated. But by the end of the year, Phil, his composure returned. His ball security improved drastically. And I think you saw, if you squinted hard enough, a lot of good things from Mac Jones to make you say, I'm leaving my chips right here on number 10 for another spin of the wheel. No questions asked.
I'd agree that he's shown enough to allow people to understand that he'd be worth another shot at being a starting quarterback for a third season. And in a different situation, can it be much better? Now, we watched Josh Allen here throwing off of 1 foot, 65 yards down the field, dropping into the bucket to real speed demons on the outside. And that's something that he's not going to be able to do, right? That's just not going to be his game. And when he gets pressured the way Josh Allen was pressured today, it's harder for him to make that first guy miss, roll out, and make a play. It's just a different way of attacking the position. But has he shown enough? And, has he shown enough to be effective? Yeah, I would say so. Going into the game tonight, I found an interesting stat, just kind of digging around as I'm wont to do.
Yeah, you are.
Pro Football Focus has a couple different metrics. One they call big time throw percentage. And big time throws are basically their highest graded plays. They're usually down the field. They're usually tight windows. And they have their turnover worthy play percentage. That can be fumbles. That can be picks. You make a bad, dumb play, whether it's picked off or not, corner drops it, that still goes down in the books as a turnover worthy play. Mac Jones is one of a handful of quarterbacks in the league who's top 15 in the league this year in both of those categories. So he's shown an ability to push it down the field and test tight windows and has some success there. He's also shown an ability by season's end, where in the second half of the season, he was much better taking care of the football until 3 picks here tonight. We could argue, whose fault those were, but he's there in a group with Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Andy Dalton was the one sort of outlier there.
But he's a 14-year veteran or whatever.
Yeah, it's sort of strange to see him in that group. And maybe people listening at home would say, well, Andy Dalton, Mac Jones, there's the subset of data. That's why Mac Jones is in that group. But I think that those two numbers, apply here because they try to zero in, Tom, on the quarterback as an individual. It's really hard to separate. You could points, you could yards per attempt, you could quarterback rating. There's a lot that goes into that. Offensive line play, receiver play, coaching. Turnover-worthy plays, big-time throws, it's kind of, are you accurate and do you make dumb mistakes? And he's in a pretty elite class of being able to do both of those, at least for this year. And to me, I'd look at those numbers if I'm the Patriots or if I'm Robert Kraft, and I'd say, let's give it another shot here because in a different situation, this could look much better.
And when they said, hey, can you stop making the dumb mistakes? You stop making the dumb mistakes. I mean, some guys can't control it. Literally cannot control it. At least he can control it. And that came after. You want to try and take some more shots downfield, throw some more 50-50 balls? Okay, I'll do that. So at least he's coachable to a point. Top 3 on-field needs, Phil.
Tackle, receiver, corner. Boom. three of the most expensive positions, three of the hardest positions to find, maybe excluding receiver. Everybody else seems to be able to find a receiver who can play. And maybe the Patriots have one in Tyquan Thornton. He just wasn't able to do it nearly consistently enough, in my opinion, to make his case to be a staple part of the offense for next year. But that to me is where it starts. You have to get better offensively. You have to get more efficient. You have to be able to protect Mac Jones because he is the kind of quarterback he is, as we just talked about. And you got to be able to have a little bit more talent, I think, at the cornerback spot. As good as John Jones has been this year, that play here tonight happened right in that corner right there. Beep, 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 if you're watching on YouTube. Where Stephon Diggs just found another gear and ran by a guy who runs a 4.3 down the field. You know, he's played out of position all year. He's not an outside the numbers corner, really. He's a slot corner who had to play outside because of injury and losing J.C. Jackson and Stephon Gilmore. And so they need another guy there, in my opinion. They've had one for a long, long time, and they had a good defense this year without one. I think if you try to do it again next year, or you try to make Jack Jones your number one, I think you might be playing with fire.
How would they have looked, I wonder, with Jack Jones, Jalen Mills, Jones injured, suspended, Mills injured? I wonder if they look at that. To me, it's tackle. It's just, and then it goes away from on field. It's got to be the offensive line. Offensive line, and offensive line to me are the key spots. It's just, you cannot have that. Meanwhile,
you might need two tackles.
Connor McDermott was the thing I was going to say here. Okay, Connor McDermott, future Pro Bowler. But and I got Cam McGrone still getting fitted.
Cam McGrone, man, he's a red jacket guy, not a Pro Bowler. He's a red jacket Patriots Hall of Fame.
I know. We'll talk about that later.
I think he's in Indy right now.
Yeah. Did Indy say? Yeah, they did.
They did.
Tavares, listen, what's going on with the Jake Bailey thing? It seems really sketchy. I mean, it seems like, to me, how do you get sideways with your punter? He doesn't seem like a recalcitrant individual who wouldn't want to play. It seems to be the opposite. He wanted to play.
I don't know. His agent, Doug Hendrickson, released a statement the other day that said he was hoping to return off IR for the last two games of the season, but was told he would be suspended. Now, Bill Belichick has been asked about this twice. He intimated earlier in the week that the reason Jake Bailey wasn't playing was because he wasn't eligible to play because the clock on his injured reserve designated to return time had run out. You get 21 days to come back once you're designated to return. He was designated on December 21st. So the clock hasn't run out. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we just misunderstood Bill Belichick during the week when he was asked about it initially, if he used language that had us confused, but that seemed to be the message he was relaying. He couldn't come back. And he didn't use the words the time had run out, but he was asked about it and didn't say that wasn't the case. Then we find out he's been suspended.
Like, what did he get suspended for?
Well, was he suspended in the Patriots' view because he didn't want to come back? Or because that's what Mike Reese reported the other day. Not that he didn't want to come back, but that there was some disagreement about the timing of his return. I think we could be looking at a chicken and the egg sort of scenario here, Tom, because officially, again, because the IR situation, the window is still open, and he could have been made activated if he wanted to play. He could have been made activated to play in this game. Or if he was healthy enough to play, he could have been activated. He wasn't. The reason on the books he couldn't play tonight was because he's suspended.
Right.
But is he suspended because he told the team he wasn't planning on playing? Or he made it known in some way, shape, or form that he didn't feel like playing? I don't know. And did he then get suspended because of that? It's just there's a semantic game being played here, and it's leaving us, and I've talked to a number of my colleagues on the beat here about just the interactions we've had with Belichick about this and the language he's using. The language he used tonight was the word unavailable. Okay, that can mean a number of different things. Of course, he's not available because he wasn't actually activated to the 53-man roster. He could be unavailable because he doesn't want to be available, or he could be unavailable because he's now been suspended. So that's sort of a blanket term that it felt like Bill was using tonight to kind of explain away the situation. But it's confusing to those of us that follow this thing really closely. Again, the reason on the books he couldn't play tonight was because of the suspension, not because the clock ran out on his designated to return status.
Is he better for kickoffs than Michael Palardi or Nick Folk?
That's why it's a story, Tom. You lose to a team because you gave up 2 kick returns for touchdowns. You have somebody on your team. He's suspended now, but he's on your team who, when he's right, is a touchback machine. Would have been nice to be able to have that option here tonight, because eventually, after the second return for a touchdown, what'd they do? They squibbed it because they said, well, we can't cover these kicks. I'm paraphrasing here. This is just based on what I saw. Nobody told me this. But it feels like Bill Belichick said, well, obviously we can't cover these kicks. Let's just squib the thing. They kick it out of bounds. They put Josh Allen on the 40-yard line, and he's already in scoring range because he can, as you said earlier, flip the thing 60 yards whenever he wants. And what do? A few plays later, they hit Stephon Diggs down the sideline for a long touchdown. So it's a story. The Jake Bailey thing is a story because of the way the game played out tonight, in my opinion.
Yeah. In addition to the fact that it's a player who was 2 years ago an All-Pro, given a big contract, didn't perform very well this year. And then a great way to extricate yourself from said contract would be perhaps to gin up some kind of a, we're not seeing eye to eye here, and this is a suspendable offense. I don't think that would be a real ethical thing to do. Hopefully we'll find out when it all comes out in the wash what exactly the story is, but I can't imagine that type of thing is what's best for the football team.
Especially now with
a lot of that.
The agent's the agent, right, Tom? I mean, you know as well as I do, like they're there to work for their clients, but he's on the record now publicly saying that my guy wanted to play last week and he was told he couldn't because he was going to be suspended. And then about a week later, he officially gets suspended on the NFL wire. That move gets made and he's not available for the biggest game of the season.
So that being January 1st, which was last week, and if he wanted to play last week, he would have probably by December 26th or 27th indicated that he wanted to play. If we're taking at face value Doug Hendrickson, who's not a new agent nor an unknown agent, what he said. So clock started on the 21st. Jake, if the agent is to be believed, was indicating by the 26th or 27th that he wanted to return. Again, if he wanted to come back last week, he would have had to do it by then. But he was told he was going to be suspended. I mean, don't make a bad season worse.
Well, and now, just so people understand, now that he's been suspended, the likelihood is that his guaranteed money for 2023 is no longer guaranteed. So to your point about having a highly paid punter and maybe trying to get out from under that contract, the Patriots have been given some relief for next season, if they want it, by Jake Bailey being suspended at the end of the year this year. And Doug Hendrickson, Bailey's agent, has said that a grievance has already been filed. So this is going to go
to the highest court in the land.
The highest court. I was like, where does it go? It goes to an arbitrator of some sort. Yeah.
Some heavyset guy with a briefcase who sits down and clicks it open and opens and says, what do we got here? Oh, it's you again. All right. Phil, great season. As always, it's not over. We'll see you on Tuesday for another Pat's Talk pod. Maybe we'll give you this Tuesday off, but we will definitely see you on Thursday because we have to put a cork in the whole thing and actually start to look a little harder towards the off season. Great work. Love your hat.
Appreciate you. Great job by you. And looking forward to talking to you soon.
I said they'd go 8-9, by the way.
You did. You did a great job with that. I had them at 9-8 and just outside the playoffs. I think I want to go back and look. My 17-game prediction ended up being pretty close to right on the money. Not as close as you, I guess. I think the only game I got wrong was the Chicago Bears game. Flipped that one, and I was good.
Understandable. Yeah. 8-9. I don't know what else I said. Man, doesn't matter. I'll dig it up if I was right. If I wasn't, I'll bury it. See ya.
Bye.